There's no denying Ruby Rose is a prodigy, the child of two veteran hunters raised by Ty, Summer, and Crow to do the best that she can. Possessing silver eyes, she's truly the spark of hope that humanity needs. But how old is she? How old is the cast of RWBY? And the even harder question, what is the timeline of events that transpire in Remnant? For your consideration, how old is RWBY? Let's start with the actual on-screen events that we know for sure before we start having to try and deduce the time of different events. We start with the events of RWBY in Part 1, with Ruby being 15 and the other girls being 17.
Why Splake and Yang are 17?
Given how Yang said that RWBY got in 2 years early, and that these are schools where you graduate from Signal and then move on to Beacon, we can assume that the system works similar to other education systems around the world. Of all the systems that I know and looked into, the European education system appears to be the closest match, with students graduating from the system around 16 years. This would be the perfect age for our hero ones to have graduated from combat schools such as Signal, and then pursuing higher education at one of the 4 Huntsman academies, just like the European system. And in the European system, they spend between 3 and 4 years before graduating from those academies, very similar to how the ages of Beacon would appear to be working, with Team Coffee being a third-year team that appears to be close to graduation. Now that we've established a starting age and how Beacon operates during the year, we can start to piece together the current age of our heroes. It would be easy to assume that school years start in fall, then move through the seasons ending in summer and starting again in fall. While the area of Vale and Patch in particular appears to have fairly moderate weather, we do know that it has a spring, summer, fall, and winter season. And based on the weather during the Yang Volume 5 trailer, it's likely summer entering fall, as she says she's about to attend Beacon.
I'm gonna be leaving for Beacon soon. I want to make sure my little sis could hold her own while I'm gone.
And when we see the trials in Volume 1, they appear to still be early fall, as the leaves have yet to change color. We don't get a good idea of season change during Volume 2, but in Volume 3, we get a good idea of season change, as after the fall of Beacon, we clearly see a change of weather from fall to winter. Because of this, we can assume that Volumes 1 through 3 are about a year and a half, as Team Ranger leaves when there is snow on the ground.
We know from interviews and questions at conventions that the time between Volume 3 and 4 is 6 to 8 months. Now, the actual length of time that Volume 4 to 6 covers is a harder question to answer. 6 to 8 months from snow on the ground would place the start of Volume 4 in summer. And at the start of Volume 5, we're told by Lionheart that everyone has left the school on break. This would lead us to believe that we are sometime in August. But we can use several clues to help us get a better idea of the time of year. As we've established previously, the school system in Remnant seems to work very similar to the European system, which returns from summer break in early September. And to back that up, when Crow is looking for names of hunters to join him in attacking Raven, it's raining. Now, rain is possible during midsummer, but with our assumed time of year, rain is becoming more common, so it's likely during this time. Another point that could help us pin down the time is during Volume 6, our heroines are heading north, and while it's not unlikely that we would see snow on the ground, we do see them trapped on the farm because of a snowstorm. And the final nail that secures our time is during Volume 6, when we cut back to Cinder and Neo. Once again, it's raining in Haven for all of their scenes. For what appears to be a temperate climate in Haven, that matches what the weather would be for fall or even winter. If we are in fall, possibly entering winter, at the start of Volume 7, it means that we're little over 2 years from the start of RWBY. This means that most of our cast is likely 19 by this point, with RWBY, who is the only birthday that we know as being October 31st, still 17.
Do you know what today is? Halloween. What? Your birthday? Yep.
But what about the rest of our characters or events in RWBY? Let's start with the easiest, the Great War. According to Oz,
on this day nearly 80 years ago, the largest war in recorded history came to an end.
And then Crow explains that,
though the war itself lasted around 10 years, the century leading up to it was filled with so much tension, you might as well lump them together.
Now we have an idea of the past 80 years, and things only get easier to pin down as we get closer to the present. After the Great War, the Faunus were given menagerie. However, as this was hardly the equality that Faunus wanted, it's unclear how long after the end of the Great War that the Faunus Rights Revolution began, but it was likely several years before the war broke out, as the Great War had granted Faunus equal rights and menagerie. However, once it had, the war lasted at least 3 years, if not longer.
Now, which one of you young scholars could tell me what many theorists believe to be the turning point in the 3rd year of the war?
After the war ended, the White Fang were born as a mediation group. This means that if we say the Faunus Rights Revolution happened 10 years after the Great War, then that would put it 70 years before the events of RWBY. Then, as the 3rd year of the war was the turning point, we can guess that it lasted another year, making it a 4-year war. That would put us around 65 years before RWBY, when the White Fang was created. With the creation of the White Fang being 65 years ago, it's unlikely that Gira Belladonna was the leader at this time. But given his age and the respect his family has, it's likely that he was their second leader, before stepping down 5 years ago and being replaced by Sienna Khan.
Then, 5 years ago, our leader stepped down, and a new one took his place.
This means that Blake began learning combat as young as 12 years old. Now, these events are all good to know, but they don't really influence the main story of RWBY. However, as we progressed in the season, a certain team has become important: Stark. But just how old are the members of this team, which has such an effect on the events surrounding RWBY? Due to the events surrounding them still being somewhat unknown, the best we can do right now is an approximation of their age. However, we get an easy hint right off the bat, as they are all on the same team, and thus all the same age. While I've been talking about how RWBY is different age from the rest of her team, we need to remember that she is an exception to this rule that Oz made. All of the members of Juniper are the same age as Weiss, Blake, and Yang, so we can at least deduce that all of Stark are the same age. Then our next hint is the age of admission at Beacon being 17, and assuming our 3 to 4 year graduation is accurate, they would be getting out around the age of 20 or 21. Now, if we say that Raven, the independent, looking out for only herself woman, decided to get pregnant at graduation without doing any adventures with Stark after graduation, then that would put her current age at 37 at the least. However, with what we've learned about how involved Stark is in Oz's plans, and the notoriety they have among Salem's circle, it's likely that they adventured around for at least a couple years. Taking all this into account, it's easy to assume that Stark is at least 40, if not older. We have to keep in mind that the writers of the show have worked to intentionally keep dates loose, with only a few events having exact dates placed on them. This makes it hard to create perfect timelines. I feel confident saying that this one is fairly accurate though, but that's just something for your consideration. Once again, I'd like to say thank you to my patrons, Andy and Kendra. Your support is very helpful in making these videos possible. I'm sorry for the low number of videos lately. A lot of life stuff has been happening, and I've been trying to sort it out, and I'll be getting more videos out soon.